Hello, welcome back to whatever this is. Today I am painting Iron Man. I was very afraid of starting him, and I spent so much time studying other people's paint jobs of him just because his entire body is extremely bright, saturated non-metallic metal. And that scared me. He is also, of course, today's theme. I did, however, find a good method that I think I'm very proud of, so it just goes to show that practice makes perfect. But throughout the whole video, there's going to be a couple of steps that I kind of undo or redo. I'm just showing you the entire process to show you how I got to where I was. I started just by painting in all the base tones to the red and gold so I knew what was what. I based the red in a mix of corn red and black, which should have been 1, much darker, and 2, purple instead of black. I know I always say don't darken with pure black, but a very skilled painter man on the internet did it, so I wanted to give it a try. The yellow I based in a mix of Mornfang brown with a little Talaran sand, which also should have been darker. With the base tones done, I kinda just had to jump into it. I made a bunch of red tones on my palette first so I could see where I was going. I used pure corn red, and then I added some Pro Acryl's bold Puril red, however that's pronounced, and then pure Puril red, and then some additions into that of little Wild Riders red, and then not right now but eventually pure white. I started doing all of these on just one leg because I wanted to make sure that it looked good before I wasted hours and hours of time doing it across his entire body. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to be showing you a lot of steps that I tend to undo or redo, so this is me putting on one of what I thought would be one of my brightest highlights, when it turns out that it would actually go way lighter. Just as a quick introduction, Iron Man was invented originally in 1963 by Stan Lee and Larry Lieber. He was, very similarly to Captain America, invented for political reasons. I know, who could possibly guess comics are political? Anyway, Iron Man was created during the Vietnam War in an attempt to make a likable pro-war character. A lot of his early stories take place during the Cold War as a weapons manufacturer, but I guess the audiences didn't love that aspect, so they pushed Tony towards themes like alcoholism in the Demon in a Bottle storyline, governmental authority in the Civil War storyline, which was also fairly controversial for his character, and extreme technological advancement as seen in the Extremis storyline. What you see me doing here is taking my mid-tone of my red so I could try to make it more evenly cherry instead of like a darker red, and just pushing back the brightest highlights. And this is me taking what again I thought would be my darkest shadow tone and just pushing back the highlights even further so I can have a higher contrast between the dark and the light. And here's the part where I'm just kind of making shit up as I go along. This part, I had it as a darkest area because I wanted more contrast there, and then I realized that I should probably just make the whole thing one color to make it more unified, and it ended up making it look better, and I literally couldn't tell you why or how to have this pattern happen. It's just something that you look at and guess. And here's my, again, what I thought was brightest highlight. You can see me using my brush strokes to sort of follow the curve of the metal to make it look more uniform, and also every time you use a brighter highlight, obviously you just make the highlight smaller. Being relatively happy with how that right leg went, I decided to try it on the left leg as well and see if I could recreate it. So what I'm doing here is I thinned down my mid-tone of red and I just made it into a glaze, and I'm just covering the entire thing in it, because if you could see that my highlights were a bit pink, I wanted to try to bring them back down to a red and try to even it out across the board. It didn't turn out exactly how I wanted it to, but then I also built the highlights back up again with some almost pure white, and that made them look much better. I'm gonna be honest, if you control your tones more and don't use pure white to get to a pink, I don't think you need the red glaze. But I think the way I was doing it, it was required, so it made it look a bit more even. But this takes way more time. And then I did the rest of it on the rest of the body. I ended up asking Reddit a couple of questions. They suggested that you deepen the shadows darker than I did, and they also make the highlights a bit brighter. Also remember that we want to have most of it be the mid-tone, so you don't want to wash out the deepest shadows with your brightest tones, because then it'll overwhelm the model and it won't look like contrast, it'll just look like highlighting. So the MCU actually does a really good job with portraying most important events in Iron Man's history. He was a weapons manufacturer who got kidnapped in the Middle East and created a suit of iron to escape. He created the Superhero Registration Act after a hero exploded some innocents in Civil War. He got nanotechnology and advanced biological sciences from extremists in Iron Man 3. They really covered a lot. Really, one of the only things I can think of that they got wrong was Ultron, because Tony didn't have anything to do with that. That was all Hank Pym. The only thing they haven't done yet, which they are working on, is Armor Wars, but that's pretty much just a story about people stealing Tony's technology to make super suits, and people do that all the time anyway, so. Now, I'm not saying all this to diss Tony, I just really can't find a lot of interesting niche information on Iron Man, so I'm gonna talk about Superior Iron Man. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the painting. There is a lot of guesswork involved, but there's also a bit of a pattern. As you can see on his right arm, I have the darkest area near his fingers, and then it goes to very bright on the opposite end of that panel, and then I do that same thing for the panel above it. And then there's sort of the opposite of that on his back, where the shadows are nearest to the top of the panel. This makes sure that you get as much contrast as possible, and it also looks mostly uniform all around. When it comes to something like his chest, I wanted it to be more dynamic, so having this slight curve to it means that there would be a bit of a circular highlight, which also makes it more interesting to look at, but it also keeps the contrasts going. Also, just a little bit of unimportant behind the scenes information for you guys. This is my first time making a video where I don't write out the entire script beforehand because I wanted to try to make it more applied to what I'm actually seeing. So a lot of what I'm saying is actually just improvised at the second. So if I sound a little bit off or frazzled or confused, that would be why. So I had put on all of my brightest highlights, and I am now doing my glaze once more again. And like I said previously, I really don't think I needed it. Plus, I think it's a little bit thick. It's good to have it be a bit more cherry red. It was definitely a bit off before, but you need the high contrast. So I will put them back in, but I'm just letting you know that this is not something you should do. Next few minutes was just me taking a darker tone than I even started with, putting that in my deepest shadows, and then also using pretty much pure white to put some glints all over the armor. The top of the helmet ended up being a bit of a highlight issue for me, but I ended up just putting a small circular highlight on the front left. Honestly, I probably should have put it on the front right because that's where his head is angled towards, but I just made a small circle and then there was a small thing over to the other side as well. The yellow was more or less the same thing, just the same levels of highlights, the same spots as the same highlights while the lights are in the same places, except I used Mornfang Brown, and then I highlighted up to XV88, then I added in some Averland Sunset to get the yellow in there, and then I finally used some pure white to get the glints up there. And also, I tried so hard to keep him in focus this whole time, I promise, I tried so hard, it's a lot harder than it looks, okay? Also, don't mind my voice, I'm in the middle of a cold, so I might sound a little grumpy, but I promise I'm just sick. Okay, I want to talk about Superior Iron Man now. So, long story short, there was an event in Marvel called Axis a couple of years ago, where some superheroes became villains and some villains became heroes. The moralities basically switched, and Iron Man was one of these people. He became Superior Iron Man, where he lost most of his morals that made him Tony Stark. So he rolled out an app that he called Extremis 3.0, which could pretty much make you change exactly how you look in any way you wanted, in any instant, immediately. And he, like a good crack dealer, made it completely free for everybody to download immediately, and that they could do whatever they wanted for like a week. And then he revealed that in order for them to keep this technology, they would have to pay him $99.99 a day, or he would take it all away immediately. Capitalism, you know? One of my favorite things about this event, though, is that it happened right at the end of the Axis event, and then immediately we went into something else where Doctor Doom had, like, godlike powers for some reason, I don't know why, and he took the normal universe and the Ultimate Universe, and he just smashed them together into one, creating a new Secret Wars, and Superior Iron Man just kind of died, and we just don't talk about him anymore. For his eyes, unibeam, repulsors, and boot cannon that are all glowing bright blue, I just based them in a pure white first, and then I took a lightish blue and then I base coated that, and then I kind of stipple highlighted in some more brighter highlights to make it brighter near the middle and not going back up to pure white, just barely. I went from a light Calidor sky mixed with Temple Guard blue, and then I put some more white into there in incremental amounts to make it brighter. For his boots, I did a process that I like to call slapping it around, where I put down a pure white and then I put down a blue underneath it, and then I took a damp brush and tried to feather between them by just slapping the brush horizontally back and forth to get a smooth transition. Once I had all the base colors down, I thinned down a mid-tone of the blue and then glazed it across all the spots where it would be glowing, just very gently in a couple of layers. I'm gonna be super honest with you. I really rushed this explosion thing. I meant to do from a yellow to an orange to a brown to a black, and I was really tired, and I was trying to rush finish it, and I wanted to get the video started and done so I could start editing it, and so it doesn't look very good. But if you just put a yellow down, and then you put an orange down, and then you put a brown down, and then you try to wet blend all those together, and then when you're done with that, you put black around the edges of the explosion to make it look like it's been charred, it'll look fantastic, I promise. It's don't look at what I've done. The base was also the same that I did for Captain America, so I based it all in as... I forgot the name of the paint, hold on. I based all the cinder block in Eshin Gray, and then I just stipple slapped on some Celestia Gray or some Dawnstone, depending on how much I wanted it to be bright. And same as the grate for Captain America, I based it in Warplock Bronze, and then did some vague highlighting with Balthazar Gold. I'm starting to remember why I wrote everything down before I said it. Improvising is hard. And then I rimmed it in black. I hate that sentence. The rim of the model, the base of the rim of the base, I painted it in black. Alright, you know what? It's the end of the video! Look at that! Congratulations, we made it to the end! God, I don't know if I'm just tired or if this is just very difficult for me to do. I'm gonna blame the cold for making me this way. Maybe it's all those medications that I took. But anyway, welcome to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope that you like how he turned out. I'm very proud of him. And I'll see you in the next one whenever that is. Bye!